Today, before we start our story, I want to ask you guys a few questions. Can anyone tell me what this is? Yes, Sophie. No, it's bigger than a piece of paper. It's kind of thick. Lincoln? Yes, we can draw on it. What if I was to add in this? What is this? Aaron? A paintbrush, correct. So if I have a paintbrush and a canvas, what would you think we were going to do with this? Or would you think someone would be doing with this? That's right. They would be painting something. A picture, a self-portrait, which is a picture of yourself, or a beautiful scenery, right? Okay. So now I'm going to introduce you to our story today. Before we say the title, can you tell me what you think this book is about? What do you guys see? Lincoln? You see the monkey? Yeah, that monkey's pretty cute, huh? Okay. And what do you see, Sophie? You see a cat. Is that a black cat or a brown cat? Right, that's a black cat. And Aaron, what are you seeing? You see flowers. What color of flowers are those? Red. And do we know what type of flowers those are? Just flowers? Right. I think they're red roses is what it looks like to me. So our story today is I Am Frida Kahlo. It is by Brad Meltzer, and it is illustrated by Christopher Eliopius. Can anybody tell me what it means to be illustrated by? Remember we talked about this last week? Anybody? No, it's not it's not the person who wrote the book. It's the person who drew the pictures. Very good. Okay. So our story today is I Am Frida Kahlo. I am Frida Kahlo. I was born in Mexico, in this house. Later we painted it blue and called it La Casa Azul, the blue house. It stood out from everything else. Isn't it beautiful? What do you guys think? Is it a beautiful house? I think so too. When I was 6 years old, I got a disease called polio. It made my right leg thinner and shorter than my left leg. I had to stay in my room for 9 months. When I finally got out, kids would make fun of me. I tried hiding my leg under long skirts or by wearing extra socks, but it didn't help. Thankfully, I always had a special place where I could escape. In my room, I'd breathe onto the window pane and draw a door. That door let me enter my imagination. There, I would visit a dairy called Pinzon. I entered through the O. It would take me down, down, down inside the earth, where my imaginary friend was always waiting for me. I don't remember what she looked like or even what color she was, but together we would laugh and dance. I'd tell her all my problems, and she would listen. Do you see her imaginary friend? Yeah, right there. That place made me happy, and when I'd blur out the door out with my hand, it would disappear. It's amazing what you can do with your imagination. To strengthen my leg, my dad encouraged me to play sports, soccer, wrestling, boxing, swimming. I did it all. What did Frida do to strengthen her leg? That's right, she played sports. Do any of you guys play any sports? Sophie? You do gymnastics? Lincoln? You play soccer. Very good. Right. Do those sports make you nice and strong? Yes, they do. One of the best things my dad shared with me was his curiosity about the world. As a photographer, he'd take me along when he was on a photo shoot. He also liked to paint. While he did his watercolors, I'd collect pebbles, plants, and even insects. I'd bring them home, looking up each item in my dad's books and examining them under a microscope. At 14, I went to the National Preparatory School, the best high school in Mexico. Of the 2,000 students, I was one of only 35 girls. At school, we were supposed to dress and behave a certain way. I dressed differently. The wealthy mothers would take one look at me and yell, "What an ugly girl. She certainly doesn't look like anyone else." I think it's kind of cool. To other students, I was fascinating. My closest friends were a group of kids called the Pachucas, which is like a hot pepper. We were smart and loved to read, but sometimes we got in trouble, like when we rode a real donkey down the hallway. Has anybody ever seen a donkey in their school? Do you think we could get away with bringing a donkey in here? I don't either, but it would be fun, wouldn't it? One day, a famous painter named Diego Rivera was hired to create a mural in our auditorium. I watched him for 3 hours. I didn't know it at the time, but my hardest days were coming. At 18, I was in a terrible accident when a trolley smashed into the bus I was riding. Someone on the bus had been carrying paint, so my body was covered in powdered gold. See Frida right there? A month after the accident, I came home from the hospital in a full body cast. My spinal column was broken in 3 places. The doctors literally had to put me back together. The pain in my leg and foot was terrible. I could barely move my arms, but I survived. I didn't get many visitors. It made me realize that I wanted to be friends with only people who liked me just the way I am. Why do you think Frida felt alone? Yes, the kids made fun of her, but why did they make fun of her? Because she dressed different. Yeah, she doesn't look like everybody else, does she? I knew my life had changed. I would no longer be a doctor. Instead, I learned to lie still. I began to paint. Since I couldn't sit up in bed, my mom asked a carpenter to make a special easel for me. I grabbed my father's brushes, Then I began. I worked hard, poring over books about art history. My first paintings weren't great. I even tore one up because I was unhappy with it. But with my mirror, I kept going, painting what I saw. What did Frida see in her mirror? Herself. Very good, Sophie. I painted myself because I'm so often alone, and because I am the subject I know best. As soon as I could go outside, I brought my paintings to Diego Rivera, the famous painter I had met years earlier. Over time, my portraits became more complex. I began adding pieces of local Mexican art and history, textiles, and intricate carvings to show people who I was. Do you see how much her paintings changed? That is a great self-portrait. Eventually, Diego and I got married. We traveled to America to places like San Francisco, New York, and Detroit, meeting some of the wealthiest people in the world. Just like in high school, some people would insult my clothing. Look at her outfit. Does she belong in the circus? And those ugly sandals. They're called huaraches. I love these shoes. Can anybody tell me what the word insult means? What do we think it means in this sentence? Do you want me to read the sentence again? Okay. Just like in high school, some people would insult my clothing. Yes, they made fun of her. Yes, they called her shoes ugly. And they said her outfits looked like they belonged in a circus. You're right, Lincoln. Do you think her outfit belongs in a circus? I don't either. I think it's very pretty. My time away made me realize that my favorite place of all was home. Back in Mexico, I embraced all the things I loved. My heritage, animals, and of course painting. Back then, women were expected to be quiet and feminine. I wasn't either of those things. In addition to painting, I became a teacher, a professor. The pain from my accident never went away. Some days it was so bad I could barely stand. Even then, I took my students on field trips. As my health got worse, my 4 committed students, Los Fritos, came to my Casa Azul for their lessons. Who remembers what Casa Azul means? Do you remember from the beginning of the book? Erin? It means her house, but what does Azul mean? Blue. It's her blue house. Eventually, I sent them out into the world to paint murals on nearby laundries and taverns. To honor my work, a gallery owner began planning my first ever one-woman show in Mexico. I was so sick, she was worried I might miss it, so they set up my bed and made me a part of the exhibit. How cool is that? Have you ever been so sick that you couldn't do something you wanted to do? Yeah, me too. Some days I get so sick I have to miss class with you guys, and I don't like doing that. Tragedy nearly took my life, but it couldn't take my spirit. Fighting back wasn't easy, especially when people made fun of how I looked and where I was from. But I was determined to see things differently. My face, my clothes, my country, even my pain. These are the colors on my canvas. They don't look like anyone else's, and they shouldn't. That's the best part. Your picture is uniquely yours. Here's everybody talking about how amazing Frida's work is and how much they love it. Art is like life. It's rarely what it first appears. Instead of following a straight path, your life and your art will twist and turn, taking you on unexpected journeys. It's messy and bold and scary and fun, but it's all part of your picture, a magnificent self-portrait. Look in this mirror. What do you see? What do you see? Sophie, you see you and Lincoln. You see you too? What about Erin? Yes. And what does Frida have to say? She sees a work of art. She thinks you're all works of art. I am Frida Kahlo, and I know that the most beautiful thing is you, just as you are. So, can anybody tell me what this book had to do with our canvas and our paintbrush? Yes. It got Frida through, yes, her injuries. And what did she paint? Self-portraits. So we're going to all go back to our stations now. And their setup is a canvas on an easel, paintbrushes and paints, and a mirror. I'd like you guys to paint a self-portrait. Paint you in the best way you know how. And when we're all done, we will make our own gallery. And some of the other classrooms will come around and take a look. And when your parents pick you up, after they've all dried and we set up our gallery, we will share our gallery with them. Because we are all beautiful and unique in our own way. All right, guys, let's head back to our stations.